This Fireside Conversation is with Giuseppe Gracia, a Swiss author, journalist, and communications advisor. He is a strong proponent of Christian and classical liberal values and their importance for our Western societies, and thus he's also a firm objector to popular left-wing ideology. The tension between these two worldviews is getting more and more intense. The West is facing a moral and spiritual crisis. We briefly touched on this topic in last year's special report without going into too much depth, mainly because the report was focused on the need and the objectives of investors. However, I do believe it is important for us to understand what values our society is built on and what we're trading off potentially if we make unwise and radical decisions. So it was an absolute pleasure to welcome Giuseppe, who has published several books and countless articles on the matter. In this conversation, he explains why faith and reason are connected and should not be separated, why getting rid of Christian values has way broader implications than we might expect, and how the woke ideology mischaracterizes fundamental human concepts and it weakens our society. This philosophical conversation was somewhat outside of my expertise and gave me a lot of food for thought. I hope it does the same for you. As always, if you like this, please hit the follow button and share it with your friends and family. Giuseppe, welcome to Edmonton, and thank you so much for taking the time. You came from St. Gallen all the way, and I just picked you up by train, so I really appreciate your being here. I've read a few of your books, and so I'm really looking forward to this conversation because we're going to be discussing topics that are not easily discussed in a concise fashion. And when I read especially one of your books, Utopian Methode, I was very impressed. I can show the book. It's a very thin book, but it has a lot of wisdom in it. So I really look forward to discussing this and touching on some things. Maybe what I will do is I will give a bit of a spoiler alert to those listening. For those of you that are easily triggered and easily offended by different kinds of microaggressions, you should probably not watch this. Giuseppe is a Christian. He's a conservative. And he's very clear, but if you want to learn something, I think you will enjoy this conversation very much because he has a way, generally in German, to really explain things in a concise and clear manner. So again, looking forward to this.
Thank you for having me.
So maybe to get started, I guess, first question really would be, what brought you onto the path of, this kind of mission of discussing things like woke culture and the topics that you touch on? I know your background was you were the speaker or the communications, what do you call it, communications
CCO,
manager?
Yes, yeah.
For
the diocese.
I guess several bishops. I guess
several
right?
bishops, yes. And before I was the crisis communication specialist for some big clients. And it was very interesting for me because this is my special field, is crisis communications and helping people to get on with a not so good situation when it comes to working with media, with journalists and so
really also communications coaching and so on.
Yeah, I coach people and often in a not very good situation they have some topics it's a nice field of work because you can help people to lose their fear and to see the opportunities you have, because it's a big spotlight you have when something is going on, and then it's a good opportunity to make some points then. And then I changed my views on religion, I would say, when I began to work for the church. Also in crisis communications field before. It was the Bishops' Conference in Switzerland.
When was that?
2007, I think, or 6, something like that. And it was because of some crisis cases they had. And I met with Bishop Koch then. Now it's Cardinal Koch in Rome.
Okay.
still friends till today. And for me, it was an interesting new world.
What changed when you say your perception of religion changed at that point? What changed about it?
I think during the years I understood more the importance of religion when it comes to the foundation of a civilization. You know, when you look at China today or North Korea, or you look on the Arabic world, you look in Africa, for example, then you see it's another religion, another part of the world, no religion at all, and it's a completely different civilization or culture. And I understood the importance of Christianity for us, for the Western society, more than I could read in books, because I knew people, I had contact with the Vatican, I saw the importance of the connection between reason and faith. This is a very interesting connection, because I would say without faith, and by faith I mean faith in the Christian God, in the biblical God, reason gets cold, gets inhuman. You can have reason like some Chinese market reason. You can have. Reason is not a problem. But then it gets cold. You can do anything with reason, you know, and you can reason your own evil targets too.
So if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is that, you know, without faith, reason lacks like the moral ethical anchor or compass.
Yeah, I think so, yes. But it depends on what you think about the human race. If you think humans are basically good, then you don't need religion, you don't need God, because they are good. Let them do, and then the world will be good. But I don't believe that people are basically good. I don't believe that.
We all have both in us.
Oh yes, I think so. So then you need some GPS, some moral GPS system. And the best GPS system I know is Christianity and Judaism. But we have to say also that when religion doesn't have reason, doesn't have science, doesn't have wisdom out of the scriptures, when a religion not has this corrective function through reason, then it becomes fanatic, it becomes blind, and that's also very dangerous. We see it on the world.
So the combination is required.
The two of them, they need each other. It's like a good couple, you know. So when we have this good couple, I think we have the Western civilization. If you look at our history, you see a perfect balance between Bible and high tech, and that's a very good balance. And it is in danger because it's been attacked. A lot of people in the elite of the society today think we don't need religion anymore because, you know, we are so sophisticated now and we are so good and people are basically good. So let's get rid of Christianity, let's get rid of this Bible crap, and the world will be the better place. I think this is a very dangerous path, and Hitler and Stalin and Mao thought the same. So
I think Solzhenitsyn too, when he left Russia, he said, you know, my country has lost God. And then when he went to the US, and then years later when he went back to Russia, when he left the US, he said the same thing. The US or the West, I'm not sure, has lost or forgotten God. And I think that probably he was expressing some of the things that you are saying currently. Yeah. So this viewpoint that you have and this your faith is something that is, you know, not in high regard in a lot of circles today. In your role as the communications responsible for a bishop, you must have been right in the crosshairs of a lot of critique. And how long were you in that job? That must have been like 10, 15 years, or how long were you in that?
Yeah, it was 12 years.
12 years?
Yes.
Okay.
A very interesting time. I wouldn't miss it, but it was sometimes hard. It was hard. It's not so easy to go into a talk show and represent a conservative bishop. It's not easy.
I imagine.
But it's a lot of fun too, and it's you learn a lot for life.
So now, basically, what you're doing is you're still, your mission is still the same, but in another context. So that is also, is that the reason why you're writing these books and why you're you're still kind of putting yourself in the crosshairs very much.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know why, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I ask myself, what are you doing? Are you crazy? I would like to have this ability to shut up sometimes.
So, but now, I mean, you are not shutting up, and I think, reading your book, I'm glad that's the case. When I read your book, one of the things that you talk about quite a bit there is, the culture war. You also talk about something, about woke culture and transformative journalism.
Yeah.
Could you explain a bit what is woke culture and what is transformative journalism?
Yeah. When I was beginning to work as a journalist, this is 30 years ago, we were told you have to be suspicious about power, always. You have to look on those who have power and look very careful what they do, and then you have to transform what you see into a good story for the public. You describe what is, you describe what happens. That's the job. Mm-hmm. Now it's not describing what is, but changing what is, transforming society. That's the issue now. It's not so much that now they lie and before they didn't lie. Of course, they always have some kind of. You have always a spin in the story.
There's always a bias.
Always a bias.
Yeah.
That's not the problem. That's normal. The problem is it's another role. It's another kind of mindset when it comes to the question, what is my job? They say, my job is now we have the truth, we know the better life for all humankind, and now we teach you what the better life will be. How do we save the planet from climate change? How do we save the planet from coronavirus? How do we save the planet from too much sugar in your food? I don't know. You can make a big list. They know and they teach you. They try to transform society into a better world, as they say. So,
where do you think that trend comes from?
I think it's activism within the media houses. It's like the universities. It's much more activism today than it is about learning something about your past or have real education. Mm-hmm. It's activism on all the scales, and I think it has a lot to do with the leftist policy taking over all these areas. I mean, universities, media, culture systems.
So this concentration in media and academia. Yeah. Then, why do you think you have this woke culture? Why is that? And it's not just the woke culture, it's a few, I guess you could say, many different new religions. Why are they so concentrated in that camp, in your view?
That's not a question for me, it's a question for them, but as far as I can tell, they believe what they say. They believe that the old white man is a disaster for the planet, so we are a disaster. And we have to change. We are imperialists, we are racist, we are sexist.
So a bit of a missionary activist role that they've taken on, and not the journalism that you would have known or learned about in the past. Now, in the Utopia method, in your book, you kind of describe that the ingredients of this progressive or woke game plan. One of the things you talk about there that I thought was quite interesting, which in a way is a bit of a contradiction, was that you were saying that they're actually combining at the state level, at the media level, at the academic level, they're combining power and morale. So basically like the moral assertions, their moral position, they're combining that with, the position of power, making those morals coercive. And actually we had enlightenment and we had, secular democracies were created in order to kind of separate those two things, right? Freedom of faith and religion. Yeah. And on the other side you had the power of the state, democracy, and the rule of the people. So there's that political rule of law side, and then there's the dimension of faith. And so what's interesting now is, I guess my question is, in your thinking, it's very important to have that faith compass, right? But at the same time, actually, we don't want the state to infringe on our moral rights or duties, right? We don't want the state to become, otherwise we go back before enlightenment. So there's that tension going on in society. And so how do you, on the one hand, what you said before, I think is very important, is that faith can be an anchor and a compass for society. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, we don't want the state to be the one holding the power of that moral compass.
Yeah.
It's someone else.
Yeah, but the reason is it's very simple, because the state, when they make some laws, it's for everybody, you know. Mm-hmm. It's for a law is for everybody, mm-hmm. you know. But religion, not religion. Religion has to be free. Yeah. You have to. You can say tomorrow, I don't believe anymore this or that, what the church says. I don't believe it anymore, and then you are out. But you cannot get out of the state. So laws have to have a higher standard of qualification to be a law, and it cannot be the moral, because moral changes with religion. If you change religion, you change your morals often. Yeah. So that means religion has to be free. Freedom of religion means I can believe whatever I want, and I have my morals. The state doesn't intervene, and the state makes his laws without his moral attitude. Mm-hmm. It's not the job of the state to be my pastor. You know, it's not the job. So mm-hmm. that's a good deal, because it means that you are a free society. You can believe whatever you think, whatever you want, and you can say whatever you want, and the state has not to interfere. That's a good deal. And if you look at the world today, you will not find one example of a state who does not have freedom of religion and is free. It's not possible. Only states who have freedom of religion have free societies. This is not a coincidence. And I would say this, like Alexis de Tocqueville 200 years ago said when he wrote his brilliant book on democracy in America. He said, totalitarian regime, they can do it without religion, but freedom not. Mm-hmm. So he said it in a very, sophisticated, ironical way. The totalitarian system, they work without religion. It's not a problem. They are very efficient. But freedom does not work without freedom of religion. Not possible. Yeah.
Maybe let's go back to the book and to we talked a bit about the transformative journalism, and I guess my question would be, in your work, and you're putting a lot of work, what's your objective? Like, what do you want to achieve? What's it with your work? What's your vision, of what's the purpose?
I think as a communications man, I love communication, all kinds of communications. I love the transcendence moment in it. To talk with you, for example, now, this conversation is transcendent for me, because you learn something, you have some encounter with human spirit. Yeah. I love that process, and for me it's all about being, I'm an intellectual guy, and I think there's an obligation with the package. It comes with the package. You are intellectual, you can write, you can think, then you are obligated to share what you see and what you thought about it. So that's what I call obligation. And it's sad for me to say, but a lot of intellectual people I know, they are only interested to have good jobs and careers and money. I'm not so smart in that area. I like to share the views I had about what I experienced, what I read, and that's for me it's an obligation. And I try to make a job out of it, but it's not always easy.
And what's your greatest concern? With this woke culture and this ideology, these new religions, what are you concerned about? What is your fear?
the next generation will be, it's a complete lack of wisdom. A complete lack of wisdom. A lot of knowledge, a lot of papers and books and computers and smartphones, I don't know what else, but no wisdom at all.
No grounding. Yeah.
No wisdom at all. Make an example. You say, I don't love you anymore, and I leave you now because I don't love you. What does that mean? It means I feel different than 10 years before. Mm-hmm. That means I think love is a feeling. Yes, it's a feeling. It's not a feeling. Love puts you into feelings, but very different feelings. If I love my daughter, sometimes I have I have feelings that are not so nice because I have some fears about it, etc. But
that never happens to me.
But I love my daughter, of course. So the feelings change. Of course they change. But love is more than a feeling. You know, feelings are in you, but you are in love.
What is love?
Love is to say, I am, auf Deutsch heißt das, ich schenke mich dir. Schweres Wort auf Englisch. It has something to do with dedication, to say to somebody, I'm here for you.
Come hell or high water, I will be here.
I will be here, yes.
Yeah.
I remember a rabbi once that had a brilliant video about young people who said, I wasn't asked to be born. I wasn't asked to be here. It was not my decision. I didn't sign a contract to be here. So now I have to pay the bill. I have to clean up my room. I have to go to school. I have to work. I resign. This makes no sense. And then the rabbi said, that's true. That's really true. You are not here because you wanted to be here. That's true. So, but follow the logic. You are not here because you wanted to be here. So why are you here? Because you are here. So why? Now, nobody answered because no wisdom in the room. Mm-hmm. But of course the rabbi was there, so they had some wisdom in the room. And the rabbi said, because somebody else wanted you to be here now. And this somebody else wanted you, not somebody else, you to be here. You have a task, you have a mission on this planet to this time exactly. And find out who that is and you will be happy.
So
it's not about you.
A purpose and maybe an unconditional commitment.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And that has something to do with love. Mm-hmm. That has something to do with love. And in the Bible, God is love. And in the Bible, love always supports life. You know, the more life, the better. Mm-hmm. The more life, the better. That's love. Love means, it's not this feeling in the soap operas that good feelings, oh my God, I'm so in love. It's not about this. It's about imposing life. It's about bringing more life to life. I think that's love in the Christian sense of the word. And this rabbi was brilliant to say, these young people, you have a point. It's not about you. And he said too in this video, he said it's brilliant. He said, when you go to the shrink and you say, I have so many needs that I cannot satisfy, then the shrink basically says, I will tell you how many needs you have. You don't know how many needs you have. I will tell you. And then you are depressed. You are depressed even more than before therapy because you have so many needs. And then he says, in the end, you have a choice. Either you are needy or you are needed. When you are needed, you will be happy. When you are needy, you are already depressed. So I think this is true. It's a basic truth that is completely forgotten in our Western society.
To some degree, it can be kind of summed up in, your purpose, God, family, country, hard work.
Yeah.
Those are things that are lost, and
that's
I guess what you're
it's
saying is they're lost in individualism, right? If it's all about me, then you don't have that purpose, that higher up purpose.
And I don't say this because I'm not a conservative because I like to be conservative, because I think it's true. Mm-hmm. It makes you unhappy if you are focused on yourself. It makes you unhappy. Mm-hmm. It's true. Mm-hmm. So don't tell your kids, focus on yourself. Don't tell them, because they will not be happy. they will be depressed. Like the rabbi said, I think that's true. So it's important, and that's my concern, that young people don't hear anymore this kind of message. It's a powerful, important message to say it's not about you. You are needed. And another thought: people who kill themselves. I have made a lot of research about this topic because I'm working on an article for the NZZ about suicide. A lot of people that survive the attempt to kill themselves, they don't say.
So they change their mind. They're
or
depressed,
they
but
try,
they do not kill
but
themselves.
they don't succeed because it was not too high enough or something like that, or the weapon was not good enough. They survive for some reason, and then when they talk to the shrink, they don't say, I didn't like to live anymore. Mostly they thought, when I am dead tomorrow, nobody cares. It makes no difference. If I'm here or not here, nobody cares. And that's really depressing. So this is a powerful message. It's important that you are here. It's important. You are needed.
If feelings and feeling good are the only thing that kind of guide you and that are your measure of your happiness, I think it's very hard to actually stick to your guns when things get difficult, right? I mean, it really takes commitment and sticking with something to really get to know its beauty. So it's like reading a book, right? You start reading a book, and the first few pages you just read them, but there's no connection. You need to commit and take the time to dig deeper, and then suddenly it grasps you, and then the beauty of reading, is something you can experience. I think it's the same with relationships, with family, with your job. If all you do is kind of like a bee, kind of go from flower to flower, you're never going to really be happy because you don't experience the benefit of taking on more responsibility, of really getting to know things in detail, and also going through the struggles of a commitment, right? And that's where responsibility really starts. It's not supposed to be easy.
No, nobody said it's easy.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful.
Yeah. I actually thought we might come across this point here. So what I did is so basically what you said before, I think is very important, is that faith or higher up should be the compass, kind of as a basis for our society. I think you've also now talked about love and the importance of responsibility, which I think is the core element of being a sovereign individual. And I'll read the first few lines of the Swiss Constitution. The preamble of the Swiss Constitution. I'd like us to talk about that a bit because it goes exactly to what you said. And I think what's really important is that Switzerland, or our constitution, our legal system, is far from perfect. But ultimately, it's not so bad. I mean, anyone who's come here and experienced Switzerland, it's not a bad place. It's not perfect, but it's better than most. And when you read this, it's just, I just love revisiting it because it goes like this: in the name of Almighty God, the Swiss people and the cantons, so the cantons, the states, that's that federal or a confederate approach, mindful of their responsibility towards creation, resolve to renew their alliance so as to strengthen liberty, democracy, independence, and peace in a spirit of solidarity and openness towards the world, determined to live together with mutual consideration and respect for their diversity, conscious of their common achievements and their responsibility towards future generations, and in the knowledge that only those who use their freedom remain free, and that the strength of a people is measured by the well-being of its weakest members. Adopt the following constitution. So that's like the first few lines, and for me it actually touches on a lot of the points that we just discussed. You could actually take each line and discuss it. It's quite powerful, and it shows that the proof is in the pudding, right? The result has been not so bad.
No, the result, it's been a brilliant result. And this is the DNA of the Western civilization, what you read. It's not only the Swiss, it's not only Switzerland, it's the Western civilization that it's founded on this. Because if you think of mankind as image of God, then you have some trouble to say it's okay to kill them. It's okay, you can do it, but it's not so easy to reason that we have to kill them.
So I guess you don't share the opinion that is quite common these days, that there's too many humans on Earth.
When I hear this sentence, there's too many people. We don't have to. We cannot feed them, etc. I always ask back: Are you too many too? And why not?
Why don't you start?
Yeah. So kill yourself and then show me that you mean it. Now this is another way to say we like the environment. We like nature. We like animals, but we don't like humans. But that's the spirit. That's the real spirit behind it. Today you have this notion that it's important to save the planet, but it's not so important to save humans. Only when it fits the narrative of the leftist policy, when it comes to migration, for example, to let them into Europe, then of course it's about human rights. But not in the other issue. When it comes to climate, you don't find them. And the same people who say we have to save the planet to save humankind say don't make kids. It's bad for the planet. So that tells you the real spirit of them. They don't like humans. I don't know why. I think it's like a depression, maybe, but I don't like humans.
I think they would say otherwise. I think they're not, it's like you said before, I think they're well-intentioned. I think they believe in humankind being better than it maybe is, but there's a lot of contradiction in that philosophy, right? Because on the other hand, it's like you say, it's like Mother Earth is prioritized over the human, and the question is, whether that's justified.
No, it's a religion. It's like this apocalyptic sects.
I think so.
It's like this apocalyptic sect. They have some guru that says tomorrow the world is going to an end and it's coming to an end, and now you have to carry your last thought and then goodbye. So this is this kind of apocalyptic. They are pessimists, really pessimists, and they have bad messages, really bad. Because you say to the young people, tomorrow you will die. What is this kind of a message? You have to say to them, we have to make our creativity, we have to use our freedom and your innovation, our technology to get a solution. That's you have to say. You have to make courage. You have to have a positive message. But these people are, prophets of doom. I don't understand.
You're familiar with Jordan Peterson, right?
Yeah.
He's actually launched something. It's called Alliance for Responsible Citizenship. ARC, R-A-C. Have you seen that yet? Or
no.
He actually had I think the event was last week or 2 weeks ago in London.
Yeah.
And it was very impressive. There were several very good speakers there. There was, what's his name? Konstantin Kisin, I think is his name. Neil Ferguson was there. I mean, it was a whole list. And basically, he wants to work with that group, with that alliance, to create a better vision for the next generation. Yeah. Because I think one of the problems with conservatives, I think, is that conservatives are not that great to inspire. It's very often this is not good. These are the rules. I think we have to get better at inspiring and creating a vision that is positive, that can motivate our young generation and convince them of the fact that everything's going to be fine. Get to work, commit, get your life in gear, and start with the mirror. That person in the mirror. That's kind of the message I think he wants to share and spread.
Yeah, but that's true. We are not so good in inspiring. That's true. But why is that? Is because we are too busy in our businesses?
So I've thought about that a bit. Yeah, it's my view is it kind of goes to what you said earlier, is the fact that I think you and I, we both are optimistic and want a better world. We want to progress. We'll work hard for that. We'll take responsibility to do that within our means. But we are not under the impression or the belief that we are good. We're not good. You know, we have both in us. We try to be good. And that's where Jordan Peterson, his answer, you know, when someone says, do you believe in God? He says, I try to act as if there was a God, which is a good way to describe a faith that, you know, aims at something higher up. And my view is that it's easier to tell a story either that is very negative because bad news sells. And the other part is that it's also easier to tell a utopian story. That's why I like the title of your book, a utopian story of a better humankind, you know, where we all are morally and ethically superior and we need to do everything to be that. And that's not how the world works. There's black and white, there's shades of gray, and there's both sides of good and bad inside of us. For me, that's kind of a harder story to tell.
Yeah, it's a harder story to tell because freedom is not an instinct. Freedom is work. Yeah. Freedom means that...
As is love, as is anything you aspire, it's anything good.
So our message is more... It's not so a beautiful Hollywood message, you know. You are good, everybody is good, and when you trust yourself and your feelings, everything becomes good. This is it's like a fairy tale, and we say it's not good. You have to work to make it good, and you are here to work to make it good because you are needed for some outer purpose than your feelings. So that's a hard message, but it's the truth. But it's not so easy to communicate this. I know it's not so easy because I'm a father too. It's not so easy, but it's the truth, and it makes people happy when they go that path, I think. But you know, because freedom is not an instinct, let's talk about instinct for a moment. Instinct is to be in the group, to be in the shadows, to be on the right side, to do more or less nothing and get money or get security, hiding behind papa and mama, you know. That's the instinct. You get born with it, it's normal. But then when you grow up and you want to be free, you have to take responsibility for every step you do. And then you get out of the shadow of the group. And then it becomes work. And I think because the instinct is to get into the group and to let the others work, socialism and communism and all these concepts, everybody in every generation have some points to make with the young people because it gets to the instinct, you know, for young people. It's the instinct to stay in the group.
They're preying on the tribal instincts, and that's why I think these simple stories or these simple principles that are based on, you know, externalities, you know, you're white or black, you're female or you're man, you're rich or you're poor. Those are the categories that they create to then, and that's Marxist. Basically, that's the basics of Marxist thought, right? I think you mentioned earlier, you know, that element of envy, you know, where you use tribal instincts to, and envy is one key. Fear, greed, envy, those are those principal emotions that they use, and they use that tribal instinct to separate and create these. I think they've been quite successful with that in a sense. You know, I mean, if we look at the current situation in the U.S., for example, it's so extremely polarized. And some of that is totally based on tribal instincts.
Yeah, I call it identity socialism. You know, you have identities now. It's not about the working class anymore. That was before. With Marx was the working class. The poor working class against the rich guys that, you know, have the power. Now it's about identities fighting each other. Women against men, blacks, whites, red, yellow.
I mean, when Karl Marx, I mean, to his benefit, we have to say that back then there were real issues, right? I mean, in industrialization, there was a lot of unfairness, and there were things that had to be taken care of, and therefore, I am not against that social or leftist part of, you know, that. I mean, there's been so much progress on that front. The things I wonder about is, you know, to some degree, those issues and problems have in the West or were for a while, largely resolved. And somehow these new problems are now being created, or old problems are being reinvented. You know, like racism, I thought that things were on a pretty good track here in Switzerland. I don't feel like we have systematic racism, but when you say that, a lot of people will say that's not true. We have systematic racism, and I'm like going, I don't see that at all.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's because they go to the instinct. Because it's easier. It's easy to say, because when I'm not feeling good, I'm failing with my life. The others are the main
culprits, I guess.
Yeah.
It's their fault. Yeah.
It's their fault. It's not my fault. It's their fault. It's easy. It's easy. And when you are young, it's always easy to say, you know, the parents are bad or the system is bad. That's normal. Because you are young, you don't understand how you work. You look on the mirror, but you don't see how you are really. That comes with age. So it means it's easy. It goes to the instinct. But the second part is a strategy, and that's why I called my book the Utopia method, because they work. It works like this. They look on the abuse of freedom in our society, and compare this abuse with an utopian society that doesn't exist. You know, they say, for example, look at the bad behavior of some big companies in the world. Look what they do to the environment. Look what they do to the people, the poor people, the kids. The kids make some shoes, and then they sell the shoe for $200 in America, and they produce it for, I don't know, $5 or so in Vietnam. Look! This is capitalism, no? And it's not a lie that there is some abuse of freedom in the market. That's true. But if you compare this with real states that are not driven by capitalism, for example, Venezuela or China, where China is part capitalist but part socialist or communist, but let's say Venezuela or real socialism in any state, or compare this with Islamic states, then you will see, you know, abuse of freedom is not an argument against freedom. It's not an argument, because, like Churchill said, democracy is the worst form of government except all the others. I would say capitalism is the worst form of organizing people except all the others, because all the others are even worse. But this is not what they do. They say, look, you know, bad people, they have some bad companies, and this is capitalism. Get rid of it because we can build utopia, and the young people doesn't. They believe that you can.
Well, I guess, I mean, these problems do in fact exist. I mean, there is, you know, for example, I'm quite active in the precious metals industry, and you know, there's artisanal mines which, you know, use certain chemicals and use certain methods which are very dangerous for those people actually using them, unless they you know, produce or mine gold according to certain rules. So to some degree you can, you know, you need to help them regulate, kind of in line with our constitution, you know, making sure that we're protecting or helping the weakest. I think we don't differ. I would say the conservative viewpoint is not different, that, you know, we don't like seeing that. You know, that is a problem that needs to be solved. I think our approach to the solution is different. And I think our approach to the solution is more difficult to sell also. Just like raising your children in a way where they become self-sufficient and strong and proud, you know, you have to protect them for a while, but then you have to let them bump their heads. That's harder than babying them and protecting them and pretending that you're the one that will always take care of them. So I feel like that's where maybe the difference is, where they, you know, the story that we tell, that tough love story, is maybe harder to sell. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's harder to sell, of course. But it's another belief. It's not only another approach to solve problems. It's another belief. We believe that freedom, in the end, shows better results than bad results. More good results than bad results. Right. And we believe that when the state comes into play and takes over the market, then the results will be much worse than when you have the freedom. So,
and we have empiric evidence for that.
Yeah, okay,
right?
but that means abuse of freedom is not an argument against freedom. It's just an argument for better solutions to avoid this kind of abusing of your power when you have a big company, for example. But it's not an argument against the system, like the leftists say.
I guess our counter-argument to that would be that capitalism or free markets, chaos, has proven to be more effective. You know, the world has come from the solutions to problems on the ground are better than someone higher up pretending or believing or cursing everything from a central position. And so our approach to the solution is a different one.
Yeah, because it's freedom is the main issue here. Because when you look at football, for example, soccer, soccer. When you look at soccer and you look at the good teams, little teams, big teams, and then you see, for example, China, who has a lot of material in terms of people, a lot of people, a lot of discipline, a lot of technique. They are brilliant in technique, of course. And a lot of people more than Italy, for example. But you can tell that China will not have one time a title like world champion. Why? They will lose every time against Italy. Why? Because they have not the freedom to make mistakes.
So now that's the Italian speaking there.
Yeah, you can say, okay, you can say Switzerland, you can say Germany, you can say France, all the big teams in this world. They will always win against China because they have the freedom to make mistakes. They have the freedom to be, arrogant, overpaid guys. But they are geniuses. You produce geniuses because you have the freedom to be crazy. And the big teams always have 2 or 3 geniuses that makes the difference. And with a totalitarian system, you don't have geniuses. You have people who are afraid to make mistakes, and then they make the move that is secure, and then you lose. You have to take risks, and you have to be allowed to make mistakes. That's why America won against Hitler when it came to the atomic bomb. That's why they were on the moon and not the Russians. Because they had the freedom to make mistakes. They had the best people, the best supportive kind of government, and the best team, and they experimented. They were creative because they were free. So I don't believe in freedom. I don't believe in good solutions and in creativity within a totalitarian system. It's not possible. That's why the Western society is so strong, and we are allowing now to being attacked in this point when it comes to freedom. It's crazy. It's like suicidal. Really, you want to get rid of creativity? What is the safe space on university other than to say there are some thoughts they are not allowed? So that means you kill creativity. You kill the main source of innovation from our culture. This is suicidal.
Freedom of speech is what you're
freedom
referring
of speech,
to.
freedom of thinking, freedom of being to be agree to disagree. All this kind of tradition we have. You have to fight. You have to have a competition of ideas. That's good. Competition of idea is good. Because it gets creativity, from you. So that's our strength. It was. Maybe it is still. I don't know, but it's under attack.
That trend towards more statism, towards more central decision making, more single narratives that are accepted and actually even maybe enforced to some degree by government. Kind of like what we saw during Corona, where it was very difficult to have a viewpoint that was not along the Fauci, let's say, narrative. Do you see that trend continuing, or do you see that being turned around at some point?
Yeah, I think I fear that it will get worse, because I don't see a big movement saying we want to be free, and the government has not the job to tell us how to be, what to eat, what to look, what to think, to take some medicine or not. This is not the job of the government. The government works for us. We are the bosses, and the government are the people who do what we want. I don't see a big movement who say this. I don't know if you see it. I don't see it.
So I do see some of that. I see it, interestingly enough, more so in the U.S. I feel like in the U.S., there's for a while it's been very much in that direction. I think globalism also, for a while was very much progressing. You were kind of going towards this hyper-globalist world, and I think the U.S. to some degree was along for the ride. And ever since, this war with Ukraine, the tensions with China, and if you also watched the, the presidential candidates for the Republican Party, if you listen to some of those interviews and so on, I feel that in the U.S. there is a bit of a movement that wants to go back more towards the Constitution, wants to recapture some of those Judeo-Christian values. There's even someone, I don't know if you're familiar with Vivek Ramaswamy. He's one of the Republican candidates, very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he has a chance, but just listening to him, he's a younger guy. I think he's maybe 40 or so. And some of his messages actually sound a bit Trumpian, but they're delivered in a very different way. And I feel like there's quite some traction going on in the US with that message. I think because the far left, the progressives, have maybe gone too far. Maybe my hope is that also the more moderate Democrats wake up and you can have a more moderate, less polarized discussion or political process in the US. I'm not sure. I feel like that is being more openly discussed. Even, the aftermath or kind of the cleaning up of the corona, learning points, I guess you could say, I feel is done more openly in the US than it is here. I have still to hear anyone here in Europe apologize for some of the mistakes that have been made. I'm not saying everything was clear, it wasn't black and white at all, but one thing is for sure, there was an overreach in some countries more than others of government, kind of what you just described, where from up above, government took on a role which was far beyond what our Constitution actually has in mind.
Yeah, I hope you're right.
Yeah, I hope so too.
I hope you're right. Really, I hope so, because
it's the eternal optimist.
Really, because I like to be optimistic, but I don't see the movement in Switzerland. We had elections, but we had also a lot of people now saying until now, that the corona policy was okay. For me, it was not okay. Not because of the question. Did it make sense to have this vaccine, or did it make sense to mask? Not about this, but the role of the state should not be to be my doctor. It's very simple, and the role of the WHO should not be to say, now in the future we will decide when we push the button to say, now this is the way to go for all the states, for all this is not the way. This is not the way for free societies. The way should be innovation. Again, it should be competition of ideas. It should be competence
and open discourse, freedom of speech. You shouldn't be able to, by use of social media, for example, to basically kill any viewpoints that don't follow that single narrative. I think is something that was one of the problems we had back then.
Yeah, it's weakness. It's a weakness to say there's only one narrative, only one idea, only one. And the people, they realize, at some point they realize. The same people who say when it comes to corona, they say, follow the science, or the climate, follow the science, but when it comes to gender, follow your feelings. Don't listen to science. Science is not, it's the same people. So the people will understand this. This is not science they're talking about. This is one program, one ideology, one interest. This is not science. Science is more much more like an Italian parliament. It's much more.
There is never one science. Yeah.
There
is not one science. Yeah, it's always a big fight. And I mean, I'm trying to be optimist, but I have to say your viewpoint that is a bit more pessimistic is you're not alone. You know, there's actually I think quite a few people. Actually, I took this down here because I just came across it. You know, Neil Ferguson at that conference, he said that liberal democracy is in trouble. He stated that the number of liberal democracies are down only 32. Illiberal democracies, so countries with elections but no rule of law and no true protection of individual and civil liberty, are up since 2007. It's gone from 46 to 58. A lot of those democracies are very young. And he says pure autocracies are up as well, from 33 to 39. So I thought that was very interesting and would support your somewhat pessimistic outlook in terms of free society. The trend currently is going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I would, but I hope you are right, because I hope that Niall Ferguson and I are wrong, because it means it's not good for our kids when we are right. That's not good. I hope, but I think like Tocqueville, and when it comes to German thinkers, Hans Böckenförde, that we need Christianity because freedom is the product of Christianity. It's not the product of enlightenment.
The aspect of faith that I think is so important is the unifying values that underlie them, right? I mean, you're gonna, that division of our society, which seems to be progressing with the polarization and everything. To counter that, faith can be, and it doesn't have to be religion. It doesn't have to be that you believe in the Bible or you don't have to be Jewish. In the U.S. you even have these different factions, Presbyterian, and that sometimes there's a big deal around those things. It's actually not the organizational aspect of religion. It's that faith and the unifying values that are so important for society. Going back to what you said before, really.
Yeah, I meant it in a historical way. When you look at the emerge of the idea that we have, that a man is an image of God, created in the image of God, then you have this idea that every man and every woman have the same rights, the same value, the same impact on life. So regardless of the status you had in the society, if it's under the Romans or later in the Middle Ages, etc. So now comes enlightenment. A little bit later in history comes enlightenment and takes this idea that every man and every woman should be treated the same before the court, etc. Human rights. It's the morning of the human rights, but these ideas would be not possible without Christianity and without Judaism. So when you take Christianity away now and Judaism away, then you will see human rights going away. Slowly, not fast, but slowly. You see it already when a guy like Peter Singer, a brilliant Jewish philosopher, says, human rights and persons should be divided. We should have human rights for some kind of apes or dolphins, but not for people in the coma, because you are not aware that you are, so you do not have rights anymore, or not babies before birth. You have this discussion, you have it already, that human rights are not simply human rights because you are human, And it's hard to discuss with people that who do not believe in a superior ground or a superior root of the human rights, to explain why we should have human rights without discussion. It's not so easy. Try it once in a while. It's not so easy. You can say we have human rights, but to explain why, it's not so easy. But for me, it's easy because, like I said, because God said so.
It's a principle that we're taking for granted, but actually the reasoning why has been forgotten or is being forgotten?
So without God, it's not so easy to explain.
No.
Because you are born human, you have all the rights. Why? Really? Okay. And when the state says, like the Chinese, somebody says now, no, you don't have the rights anymore because you have managed to lose them because you don't like this program from the government or so. Or like in the Arabic world, only the man has full rights, not the woman. The kids anyway not, and the unbelievers not, etc. This is not, to have human rights and to be, without concern about it, is not normal in the world. It's not normal. It's a big Ausnahme.
Exception.
It's a big exception in the world. Mostly in the most parts of the world, there are no human rights. Maybe there are some papers written, like in India, but the government doesn't care about human rights there.
So, if you look at something like United Nations that is very big on human rights and talks about human rights a lot, that's a global association or institution. How do you think they then reason that importance that they talk about for human rights?
They don't explain it.
They don't explain it. And you're saying they basically are taking it for granted.
They're proclaiming something. They're proclaiming. But can you explain it without God? I don't think so. I never heard a philosopher explain human rights, why we have to have human rights without God. Take God away, and then you have, then we are some animals. Okay, complex animals, a little bit diffuse animals, maybe animals with some humor, I don't know, but animals. And then you have to explain why these animals have to have more rights than, let's say, a very beautiful dog. And there's some data, I know this from an American friend, there's some data, they had data from 20 years ago and from now, and they ask people when the house is burning and you have to choose to get your dog or your neighbor. 20 years ago they said, of course I go to the neighbor. But today, no. They say more people say I take my dog. More people say this, yes.
Interesting.
And when you look at the environment movement, they don't like humans very much. A lot of them say we have too much humans, so and then you can kill your babies when they are not born. This is not a strange view. This is mainstream. So it's not so easy to say we have human rights and it's explained enough and they will stay. I don't think it's not so easy. No. We have to fight for them. We have to be awake. In this sense, we have to be awake, because they are in danger. And I love life. I love being with humans. This is my Italian nature also. But it's not. Do not take them for granted. I don't think that they will stay without, like a magic thing, because they come from the Bible and they will go with the Bible when we risk them.
So, what is your vision, Giuseppe, as far as if you could describe a solution or a vision for the future? Basically, you want us to kind of go back to our roots a bit, right? Or at least revisit and revalue those values and traditions and culture, the culture that has brought us where we are, and obviously progress and keep solving problems. But I guess that's the vision for you that you would see is necessary for the Western society not to decay, basically.
Yeah, to understand in a big scale, no human rights without Christianity, no freedom without human rights. That's the scale. That's the foundation of our civilization. And who loves life, and who loves to emerge, and who loves to be creative, to have positive messages for the young people, it's very easy. Maintain this course of fight for freedom, but don't let make out of freedom some kind of, only a word. It's not a word. It's work. It's hard work on yourself, especially on yourself. But it would be the best of possible ways to have a society. I'm sure of it, and I hope that people understand more than that. It's not enough to consume or to work. It's not enough. You have to have values, and you have to push yourself into a better version of yourself. You have to work on you. And like the rabbi said, I like this very much. You are needed. It's a purpose that you are here.
It's not all about you. It's
about even this conversation now. I believe this is needed, that we talk to each other. Maybe someone will see it. Maybe only one guy, and they say, yes, that's good. And that's the thing. That's the thing that can push you into a good life, I think. And when we can communicate this to young people, it would be very good.
So when you talk about freedom, I think it's so important. I mean, what you're saying is, to have freedom, what that requires is that you actually, it's not just about yourself. So it's not, freedom doesn't mean that you can do whatever you like.
Yeah, freedom is a state of mind. It's not an option. Because, when it is an option, you lose your freedom when you choose. It's very easy. You think about it. When freedom is an option, a lot of people think freedom, the more option I have, the more freedom I have. So okay, when it's true this, then you don't have to choose, because everybody agrees when you choose, you lose your freedom. I have a lot of women. Okay, I choose one, I lose my freedom when it comes to women. When I have a lot of politicians, I choose one. A lot of drinks, I choose one. A lot of houses, a lot of cars, a lot of jobs. I choose one, and then I lose my freedom. This is not freedom. Freedom is not an option. Freedom is a state of mind. And the state of mind, by a state of mind, I mean it's a product, it's a result of your work. It's not a state of mind that comes from heaven. You work on yourself, you're being useful to others, you make something you like, you love, and you share, and then you will be free. That's the message. But it's not so easy.
It's not an easy sell, but it goes to the core of what we've discussed, and I think it's an important message that each one of us has to kind of contribute and take on responsibility within his means to make everything better. So to maybe close our discussion, where do you see, if you think of your children, where do you see their greatest challenges and opportunities ahead?
I hope for them that they find a good partner for life in the first place. Like I found my wife. This is a jackpot. My wife is the jackpot. It's almost it's unbelievable that I found my wife, and so that's my wish for my.
I'm so glad that jackpot exists more than once, because I encountered it as well.
Yeah, very good. So I wish this for my son and for my daughter. I have a son and a daughter, that they found a good partner for life, and then a good job, to being useful, and to know I'm needed. I'm needed for my partner, am I needed for my job, needed for the community, and that is a good way to go. I don't care about career and money and etc. I care about these things.
That journey of growth.
And to be needed and to be loved and to love. That's more important than everybody else. So that's what I wish for all the kids, not only for mine.
I think that's a good way to close. And thank you so much. I thought this was very, very interesting. So thanks a lot,
Frank. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, it was the same.